Yeah, that's an awesome opportunity to get involved with a great project. I'm looking forward to see how they continue developing. Our next speaker is the founder of NKN, which stands for New Kind of Network. He's a code contributor to Linux kernel network subsystem. He's a co-founder of OnChain and in charge of management of the OnChain branch office. Studied at Stanford and has an outstanding background in cryptography. So please help me welcome Li Yanbo.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Hope everyone just enjoy the session in the beginning, and now let's start the new session, the NKN, which is a new kind of network. So before I start, I'd like to introduce myself firstly. So my name is Yanbo Li, just mentioned, and I'm the co-founder of OnChain, and meanwhile, I have another role in that NKN's founder. So basically, I'm a big fan about open source. I have been working for the Linux kernel network subsystem, the code contributor for a long time. And in the past 3 years, after we started up the OnChain with Da Hongfei, and I just dedicated to blockchain design and development. So we just implementation from scratch, blockchain system like the DNA, which used by lots of customers. And the system, I think, until now, is running very well. Meanwhile, my background is just mentioned. I have been in Stanford to study the cryptography. And in fact, in the morning, the speaker, Dan Boone, is my teacher. And I want to say thanks to him. In the more than 10 years ago, I just worked for Nokia and Qualcomm, specify in the distributed network, in the mesh, and the P2P network. So combine all of my experience, I always think about one question like that. How to utilization the blockchain system to make the network better, and how can we improve the network layer of blockchain, especially the P2P network, to make the blockchain even better. So basically, the core resource in the computer world will have some element like that. One is the compute resource. Another is the storage resource. And the next one is the network, or we call the transmitter resource. In the compute resource, it's already integration with the blockchain system. For example, like the Bitcoin, like Ethereum. The Ethereum is so-called the world's computer, which means the computer can be distributed to all over the world utilization the resource. And in the storage domain, there are also some good projects like the IPFS, fine call, CR storage. It's just utilization of the storage to distribute to integration with the blockchain system. But in the network domain, especially in the transmit domain, few projects can do like that. So when I think about how can we integration the network resource, especially the transmit resource, together with the blockchain system. And even in the current network, there's still lots of problems existed. For example, just as Professor Zhang mentioned, currently the internet has lots of challenges. And one of them is that the network, in fact, is the fragmentation. What that means? In fact, the network or internet has been split to different sublets due to kinds of reasons. In this case, that means the information cannot be freely exchanged or flow between each other. Some node could reach some other node, but some cannot do that. Another thing is that I think lots of people already know about that. The FCC just try to ban the net neutrality. So what's that mean? In a network resource be controlled by centralized company, it's very hard to say that we could be keep the net neutrality from network transmitter layer. So only the purely decentralization network could secure net neutrality. And also there are other problem, like currently the network resource usage is inefficient. What that? For example, some nodes just have lots of boundwise, and the nodes could be reached lots of range, but some nodes cannot. So if we could create a sharing economic that some people could share the boundwise or the range to other people or other nodes, that would be great help for the network. So people just think about that. We already have mesh network or P2P network, but both of them, they have some problem in there. So in the current P2P or mesh network, they also have some problem in there. Firstly, the mesh or P2P network is not decentralization from some aspect. For example, in the initialization, it highly depends on some root nodes or seed nodes. That means if we're broken the seeds or root nodes, the network cannot be set up correctly. And meanwhile, the network pattern is static, just like a topology is static. So which means that if the network pattern is static, so the behavior of the network is either to be detective and either to be blocked. Meanwhile, in the traditional mesh or P2P network, it's just absence of economical incentive scheme. For example, in the Tor, some people just volunteer to set up the load to relay packet for other people. But without a long-term economic incentive scheme, it's very hard to say that the volunteer can do that for a long time. The last one, currently we see a trading like that. Not some system, especially blockchain system, they just compromised the decentralization to enhance the performance. For example, to improve the TPAs. We don't think that's correctly because most people think that decentralization will benefit for all of us. So how to make sure the network still keep decentralization and meanwhile to improve the blockchain system performance? That's a hard problem. How can we solve that? So we just create a new project. NKN want to address all of the above problem. What's NKN? NKN is a serial atomic powered, decentralized data relay network built on blockchain and incentivized by native token. So there are lots of keywords in there. Let's explain them one by one. So what's the goal of NKN? Just as the problem we mentioned, the goal is the mapping with the problem. Firstly, we want to collect anyone and any place, and secure the network neutrality from network layer, and it should be always open and scalable. Meanwhile, we want to tokenize the data transmission capability to incentive the participant node. And the last one is an experiment of a new kind of size. We already mentioned new kind of size for several times. So what's new kind of size? The new kind of size is proposed by Stephen Wolf for a long time. It's a brand new science or methodology that's different with the traditional mathematics. So what's the relationship with our network? Because we think that in the new kind of size, the methodology or the tools is used, which is the serial atomic, is perfect mapping or perfect match with the network behavior what we wanted. Why that? Because in the new kind of size, it's just to have a principle that a simple behavior rule could lead to complex behavior. As there are several other principles, I don't want to explain them one by one because it takes too much time. So we put just to say the serial atomic, which is used in the new kind of size, it has some natural or innate feature that mapping with the decentralization network. Firstly, the serial atomic is fully decentralized, and it's equal pure to running in parallel. It's dynamic, self-organized, and self-evolution. And the last one, the rule is very simple, which means it could be implementation from engineer point of view. So combine all of the goal point, we think that if we build a network, just introduce the serial automate and its rule, we can create the network that what we wanted. So that's a simple example about how can we mapping the serial automate to a network. I just read them quickly. For example, we just suppose all nodes are equal in the network, and we select a simple serial automate ruler. The rule you should be carefully select. And every node keep its own serial automate states, as well as the label state states. For each network cycle, we could be mapping with the blockchain generate time. The node that receives the data will update its CS states. And all the labeled states also will update based on the rule and other label states. Then the link between the nodes could be adjusted based on that. So the network topology is involved without changing the underlying infrastructure or protocol. That's what we wanted. So finally, if we construct a network like that, what's the feature it has? It will be truly decentralized. It will be openness and fairness. It will be self-organized and self-evolution. Meanwhile, it's routing dynamic, which means its network pattern cannot be detected. So from blockchain point of view, where we change or modify 3 layers from bottom to up layer. Firstly, we will introduce the serial automate rule to build a dynamic mesh network from the network or P2P layer. And in the consensus layer, we'd like to introduce a useful proof of work by combining with the transmit capability. And in the incentive layer, we just make the transmission capability to be tokenized. So that's a detail. From left to right side, after introduce the serial automate to the network, we just rebuild the network transmit layer and move beyond the P2P network to make a more robust, secure, and personal private key network in there. And after introduce a proof of relay, we called it's a useful proof of work. Because in Bitcoin, the proof of work, the result is just a waste of energy because no one thinks the hash of the computer is useful. But if we just make the relay capability as a proof of work, which means when you work, you also do something meaning. For example, for relay or transmit for other people. So after introduce the proof of relay and the serial automate ruler, we can improve the consensus efficiency and fairness of the blockchain system. And meanwhile, by tokenization of data transmission capability, we just improve the overall resource utilization of data transmission for the up-layer decentralization application. And meanwhile, we incentive more people to join the network and expanding the network. Because in a P2P network, if no people waiting to join the network is just nonsense. So finally, we will deliver a universal network layer and a better blockchain system. So that's the innovation in there. All of these 3 aspects just combine with the serial automate ruler. And we can just implementation, what's the goal we just set. That's our roadmap. We have a 4 roadmap, 4 phases. And in phase 1, we just release our own online blockchain backend forum for technical communication. And if you have some suggestion or technical point of view, it's always welcome to the forum to share your idea. The forum is just like Steemit, and you will get the reward from the forum. And in phase 2, we will release the white paper and the relative economic model. And in phase 3, we will launch a beta NKN network with ledger-based cellular atomic and proof of relay. And in the next phase, we will release the final version that's the high efficient and scalable network in there. And currently, we are located in the phase 2. That's a bad news. That's also good news. You know what? So the economic model, just similar with the fine call or IPFS, they just focus on the storage domain, but we just focus on the network domain. And we intend to toggleize the participant state transmission capability instead of the storage. And we finally, distribution ratio is still to be determined. But overall, we think that we will allocate the incentive to miner and the developer to encourage them to join the network and make their product better. Finally, we provide a better collectivity by using CA and create a dynamic self-organization and blockchain native token motivation more people to join the network. So that's our team. We just try to create a distributed product. Our team is also distributed all over the world, including in Beijing, in China, and also in Montevideo, and also in Sweden, and also in San Jose. And in the left side is our 3 founder and co-founder. The first one is me. I'm the founder and also a co-developer, and also Jen in the side, and also Justin Wang. So currently, we still hope any people who have interest in this project to join us, to share your idea or even contribute to the coding. It's always welcome. So today is the NEO Developer Conference. What we do with NEO? Just as Dan mentioned in the earlier, the NEO try to decentralization of the load. So when I think about that, we could work together to explore an innovative way to construction a self-evaluation P2P network. And meanwhile, we will make a universal or compatible smart contract system with NEO. And the last one, of course, we'll share the open source talent community. So, okay, last one. The time is limited, so if you have questions or want to know more about detail, just visit our website, NKN.ORG. And if you have any question or suggestion, just send an email to me through the contact NKN.ORG. The middle is our slogan, what we wanted. We just want to free the bits, rebuild the internet we always wanted. Thank you.